Hello, welcome to Into Dorkness, episode 28. My name is Sergio.
I'm Sean.
That's Sean.
We're a little sleepy today.
A little sleepyhead gorilla museum, sleepy time gorilla museum.
For sure.
Why am I so sleepy? I went to bed around 2.
I went to bed at 3 and I was up at 9:30, so I didn't get that's a decent night's sleep. It's not a good
Why
night's
did you go to bed at 3?
Well, we got home at 2 something.
Did you leave that late? We had festivities. We had a jubilee.
A triple graduation jubilee.
Last night, several of our friends graduated, including the Khaleesi of Into Dorkness.
Yes.
So we're celebrating that momentous achievement.
Yes.
Sean left at some point. I thought it was earlier than 2, but I guess I was wrong.
I think we left like at 1:30, 1:45-ish.
I went to bed at 2. I woke up at like 9:30, like 9:15-ish.
Well, we stayed up for a little while because we were so hot that it took us a little while to cool down enough to get under a blanket or get in the bed, because otherwise you're just kicking around like, this sucks.
This
like
is the worst, yeah.
I'm like, yeah, so 6.5 hours. It took me another 2 hours to drag her out of bed. It's like pancakes, even though there weren't pancakes.
No, there were waffles. I didn't eat anything.
You abstained.
I ate potatoes. I sauteed potatoes beforehand.
I think what happened, I don't think any of us would have been that sleepy, except, first of all, we're 30 and we stayed up late.
We're old.
Having fun. Not even like that much fun, just having conversation.
Yeah, just like talking and just enjoying each other's company. It was just exhausting.
Right. But then, eating a bunch of food, I don't know what your deal was, but then the AC went out at your house. It froze up. And I think sitting there in the heat, like you just want
to die.
Yeah, or take a nap or something.
Or the closest thing that doesn't involve, like
actually dying.
Having to plan a funeral.
Right.
This week was supposed to be our inaugural book club Into Dorkness.
Right, at the Mountains of Madness.
But we decided that since we have 5 episodes to discuss, those episodes always run a little long. So we're going to wait.
We want to give the madness the full attention it deserves.
Exactly. So we're going to wait till next week. So that means you have another week, and also we haven't been promoting this at all on the Facebook page.
We need to talk it up a little bit more. I'd love it if somebody actually read the book with us.
And so you have another week to read it. We will be discussing it next week.
Yes.
At the mountains of at the montañas de Madniso.
Is that how you say
it
in
not
Spanish?
At all. De loco, man.
De loco.
So I listened to podcasts.
Yes.
I create one.
You're a content creator.
I'm a content creator. I'm a content subscriber.
Right.
I consume podcasts. Some of my favorites being Harmontown.
Yes,
Harmontown. Yeah, Dude is another one of my favorites. The Comedy Bing Bong, the Comedy Bang Bang.
I need to catch up on Comedy
I do as well.
Bang Bang. I haven't listened in months because I got way into Harmontown.
Those are more general humor podcasts.
Right.
I also enjoy more specific topic podcasts based on what I enjoy and what I love.
Like soccer.
Or
football, as it's known in every other country on the planet.
Yeah, right? One of them being, my favorite is Men in Blazers, which is on the Grantland Network. Grantland, which is an amazing sports
/ entertainment.
Pop culture website run by Bill Simmons.
And employing Chuck Klosterman, one of my favorite
Chucky
pop culture critics.
Old Chucky K's on there.
Chucky K, those buddies.
But they have a nickname for the fans of the podcast.
Mm.
They call them GFOPs, great friends of the podcast.
Oh, okay.
And so they'll be like, we had a lot of great emails from GFOPs this week.
Right.
We should have a nickname for Josh and David.
BDB.
We should have a nickname for those two guys.
And for Rob and
all the rest of the gang.
But David and Josh especially.
But Rob's fighting the good fight. Rob, if you're out there, we love you.
We do love you.
I mean, if you're out there, of course.
If the NSA hasn't gotten to you yet.
What do you think?
My first impulse, when you were mid-sentence, and I was already thinking BDB, but we can't do that.
What's BDB?
Big Dick Buddies.
Big Dick... What?
A compliment to our fans.
What about Tits McKee and Mary Beth?
I don't know.
I mean, they're buddies, but I don't know about the size of their dicks.
No, their dicks are of questionable size.
As women, I would wager that they're pretty small, almost negative.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah, in the inverse of a dick, if you would.
Maybe.
Dorks.
Dorkers.
Dorkists.
Dork guys.
Into dorkers.
IDs into dork.
There you go.
I don't know. Ids. Thank you. Hey, Ids. I don't know.
If you guys have a better idea for what we should call you, that we can have we're open to suggestions. I guess.
Yeah, always open to suggestions. As always.
Yes, nothing but suggestions.
Just give us.
Tell us what to do. Tell us how to make you happy.
Remember at the beginning of the summer when we were watching every movie that came out?
Yes.
And then it kind of curtailed.
Yeah, well, I think we both got kind of busy. I think for me, Man of Steel was like the apex of what I was looking forward to. And then Pacific Rim was the other one. And so I really loved Pacific Rim. And after that, like, there's other stuff I'm interested in.
Yeah.
But I just
like the Wolverine. We haven't seen the Wolverine.
I think we're going to try and see it this week.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Obviously, we won't be able to talk about it on the show because we can do a Wolverine minute, I guess. Because we've got Madness plus Trek next week.
Well, yeah, I think we'll have plenty of time, hopefully. But then there's Kick-Ass 2, which I wanted to see just because I enjoyed the first movie.
Yeah, I enjoyed the first one.
But the reviews are kind of abysmal for it.
Yeah, I've decided that one I don't need to see. Wolverine I do want to see because the reviews on that one were actually pretty good.
I watched We're the Millers.
You did?
Which is Jason Sudeikis, Jennifer Aniston, Emily Roberts. Emma Roberts.
Is she the daughter?
No, she's the niece. She's Eric Roberts' daughter.
Eric Roberts, the actual actor, Eric Roberts?
Yeah, she's Julia Roberts' niece. What do you think I was talking about?
Emma Roberts? I don't know who Emma Roberts is.
Why'd you say that? Oh, she plays the daughter in the movie. Yeah. I'm sorry. And then this other kid who hasn't been in anything that I don't recognize. But yeah, Nick Offerman's in it. And
Megan Mullally from Will and Greg, doesn't she play his wife in the movie?
No.
It's not her? Who plays his wife?
The one...
In the tent? The swinging couple from the trailer?
Who's that from Will and Grace?
The Grace's secretary?
That's her?
I could be wrong. Let me look this up.
I thought at first I thought the whole time it was who was that on SNL who sang
Jessica Biel?
No, who did what?
Molly Shannon?
No, who sang really well. She did the Celine Dion impersonation.
Oh, I don't even remember now. Anna Gasteyer?
Yes, I thought it was Anna Gasteyer the whole time until the credits rolled. I'm like, that's not Anna Gasteyer. Anna Gasteyer. She's been on Parks and Rec. Not Parks and Rec. She was on Parks and Rec. She was the Bobby's campaign manager. Wasn't that her? That's Anna Gasteyer, right? No. Dude. I don't know.
Yeah, it's Megan Mullally is Karen Walker. Let's see if she's in We're the Millers.
Holy shit, that's crazy. That's not her. You're stupid. You're a stupid person.
Yeah, I don't see it.
That's not her. She looks.
I only saw the trailer the one time, and I was like, "Is that her?"
And Ed Helms plays a drug dealer. Don't spend money on it. I mean, like,
if you've got a friend who works at the theater and is like, "Oh, I can get you into any movie that's older than a week,"
yeah, for free, or if it shows up on Netflix in like 6 months, like Netflix Instant, like by all means, like if you got
you've got endless time to spend,
you got a lazy Sunday afternoon to kill, like why not? It's not anything like there are like maybe 2 laugh out loud moments. The rest is like chuckle worthy.
How do you think we would have felt about that at 18? Do you think we would have been angry about it or been like, oh, that's bullshit? Or are our standards lower? Or do you think we would have loved it more because we hadn't seen as many comedies? So it'd be like, oh my God, this changed my life.
This changed my life.
Like my life is different now than it used to be because of this movie?
No.
What do you think that is? Do you think our expectations have gotten higher or lower?
I think they've gotten lower.
For what we're willing to accept, but I think also we're less impressed than we used to be. Like, if something really impressed us way back when, it was like, it felt like it was changing your life.
Like Donnie Darko impressed the shit out of us when we were 18.
How do you feel about Donnie Darko now?
I still think it's a decent little sci-fi flick.
I do too.
The director's cut is balls. If you prefer the director's cut of Donnie Darko over the theatrical, you're doing liking movies wrong. You're doing it wrong.
It really does ruin the movie because it puts a definite interpretation on the film, And the whole thing that made Donnie Darko so great, I mean, it's pretty well directed and well acted. It's got some great character and emotional work. But, like, what made Donnie Darko so much fun was that you couldn't make it all add up. You could have theories, but, like, none of them quite
like,
worked.
there's like, missing gaps in every theory that you just kind of, like, well, like, with any kind of, like, belief system, like, any kind of, like, religion.
Right.
You kind of just have to, like, well, just be like, well, that's just the way it is.
Right. Well,
that's just the way it is. Do-do-do.
It's sort of the problem you run into. It's sort of like what George Lucas did with the prequels, or what you could argue the guys in Lost did with the final season, where they, instead of saying like, no, it's a mystery and we're going to leave a lot of it a mystery, they actually answered most of their questions. They did. You might not like the answers.
No, yeah. I love the ending of Lost.
I do too, actually. I feel like the end of Lost is a little bit frustrating in as much as you think that they're setting you up for one thing, and then it turns out, I mean, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched Lost and you are interested in watching Lost, just tune out for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Where you think that, there are these multiple universe timelines, and like they're going to have to find a way to tie them together so everyone can still be there, even though the ones who died, and the real John Locke will finally get to come back and kick his murderer's ass. But no, it turns out there are no do-overs. I mean, Jack talks about it at the end. He's talking to Desmond because Desmond pulls the plug and he's like, why didn't it work? Why am I still here?
Yeah.
And Jack's like, no, there are no do-overs. Like, this is it. So there's something kind of nice about that. But the idea of like, no, they really were in purgatory the whole time. Like, when very clearly they seem to be setting up parallel timelines only to fake you out at the end. I don't know. It felt like a little bit of a cheat in retrospect.
I mean, I think they did too much. They
over the course of the first 5 years,
they cock teased a little too much, too many different things that they could do, and at the end of it, I guess maybe they couldn't decide which one they wanted to really. They didn't want to like commit to any one of them,
right?
And so just went with more of a a personal, emotional,
right?
Like, and these are the characters and people you love.
And I didn't mind, like, I loved the idea that, like, they made, that they were all together. Like, a lot of people online feel angry about, like, well, why would they feel like, why would they be here together? Like, they were only together 90 days tops.
Those are pretty intense 90 days.
Right. And the fact that Jack died at the end of his, essentially. Well, I mean, I guess he was gone for 3 years and came back. But, like, yeah, I agree. It's like, nothing would ever change that. Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean...
Like Joseph playing the Nintendo.
Yes, for those of you who are a fan of our... high school tape-recorded radio shows.
I thought about that. Sometimes we'll make, like, crazy old, like, in-jokes. And I thought about, like, when sometimes I'll edit the show before I post it. And I would think about like, editing, taking those out. But I thought, like, maybe not. Maybe, like, we'll make, like Joseph play Nintendo. And, like, and people will think, like, what the fuck does that mean?
It'll be their own Donnie Darko.
Yeah.
And then we'll find the tapes and release them, and people will be like,
oh, okay.
These guys were kind of racist when they were
kind of racist.
And misogynistic. And
were we? Misogynistic?
I don't think like openly, but I think probably we threw around something which we weren't proud of.
I mean,
we'd be proud of.
Well, we just thought it was, we were 16.
We were saying words you weren't supposed to say.
we were saying
I don't think there was anything
that were naughty,
Yeah. Just trying to make each other laugh.
Because I don't think that my feelings on race have changed much in the past, decade and a half.
In the past, 30 years, really.
And so, I'm pretty much still of the...
Same hateful.
If you got a strong back, we can use you. Which is, there was an SNL skit, Who's More Grizzled? It had Garth Brooks.
Oh, yes, and there's the hooker, right? No, that's My French Whore. No, that was a different Garth Brooks.
Garth Brooks and James Duvall. Not James Duvall.
Robert Duvall?
Robert Duvall. Who's James Duvall? I was thinking James Caan. Robert Duvall. There's no James Duvall. I was combining ever. I was combining James Caan and Robert Duvall.
Okay.
And they're both like these grizzled old men. And there's like a lightning round. And the host would be like, blah, blah, blah. And they would say something. And he goes to Robert Duvall and he's like, immigration. Or maybe it was Garth Brooks. He's like, you got a strong back? We can use you. And then the last one was God. And it goes to Robert Duvall and he's like, as I was storming the beaches in Normandy, I looked up to the heavens, wondered if there was a God. And then I saw my fellow brothers slain around me. I realized that there wasn't. And Garth Brooks turns to him, he's like, damn, you are grizzled. I've tried like hell to find that skit online. Maybe
SNL's pretty strict about a lot of their stuff.
Yeah.
Like they try to keep it in the family, as it were. Like, it's sort of like how at one point, like, you couldn't, I don't know if this is still true, you couldn't find a Family Guy clip on YouTube, right? Because they pulled so many of them down. Like,
probably.
And I know SNL is sort of
there are some bands it's insanely hard to find
their music on
YouTube. On YouTube, like, just like a picture of like the album cover, with the music playing over it.
Right.
But yeah, up the long ladder.
Yes, let's talk about
speaking of Irish people.
Oh God.
Speaking of immigration,
this is a weird one. Well, my phone's charging, but I want to see the text I sent you about it the other day.
Well, the episode starts off with Worf. He has like the bubble guts or something, heartburn.
Diabetes.
He's got the diabetes, and he's like, "Am I gonna have to lose my leg, Pulaski?" And she's like, "Yep."
Pretty much, she saws off his leg.
And that's the end of the episode. No,
fucking dark, but.
Well, apparently, like he hadn't had his between meal banana, so his blood sugar dropped or something.
I guess.
He fainted.
He has the Klingon measles.
Yeah, it's Rapak un Gor, which is like like you said, like the measles.
Right.
Which he's like all like, ooh, that's a child's disease. I'm a warrior. And Pulaski lies to Picard, covers up Worf's.
And Worf's like, hey, we're buddies now. Yeah,
and they share sexy tea time.
That's right. And
which is
she drinks poisonous tea.
Yeah, which is the end of that story.
Yeah, there's nothing more to it.
Like just a little
a vignette, and then it's done.
I like that.
I liked that too, and it makes me again like her more.
Well, it's like those it just builds character. It's character building.
Yep, and if they'd kept her around, I'm sure that could have that friendship could have continued to develop.
Maybe a romance.
Probably, right?
Speaking of, we had a request to I guess it was the first episode. We read some Star Trek / fiction.
Oh yeah.
We had a request to bring that back. We decided not to read other / fiction because Sean said it is cruel.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know the unless like the writer explicitly states like in the like, hey, like this is meant for laughs.
This is for funsies.
Like you should read this and laugh because I wrote it with But for all intents and purposes, we don't know.
These are probably sincerely.
We don't know the author's intentions, and so to read them and laugh at it, and to read their work without their permission,
like I mean. And, I told Sergio, like, regardless of the caliber of the writing or the writer, like, if I tuned into some podcast or somebody told me, like, hey, somebody found your short story that was published a couple of years ago, and they're reading it online and laughing about it, and it got, like, 1 million hits or whatever.
A million hits.
Because your writing is just that bad or whatever.
So,
like, I would want to put a gun in my mouth.
So we're going to write our own.
Okay, that's the decision?
That's the decision. We're going to write our own / fiction and make it just as naughty and dirty and sexy.
So many dicks.
Well, when it's naughty and dirty, the sexy's implied.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to do that.
Are we going to do TOS or TNG?
Maybe, I don't know.
Cross, a generation style.
A generation style / fiction fuck
party. A Nexus fuck party.
Yeah, absolutely. The Enterprise, they get this signal beacon, and Picard's like, hey, do you know what this is? And Riker's like, sounds like an SOS. He's like, dude.
Nicely done. 5.
I knew you were the best.
Bro grabs.
They bro grab, and he's like, yeah, dude, it took like the
Starfleet, like 3 years.
Like, like a couple of days or something.
Something
something stupid. You got it right immediately, bro.
You should be a captain.
And so they find the planet that sent the SOS, and its sun is supernovaing.
Yes.
So it's gonna blow up. Boom. So they start to beam everyone aboard, and they're all these like crazy like James Joyce characters on crack.
Well, what's interesting is Riker keeps trying to tell him like, oh, they're extenuating circumstances, and Picard is not fucking having.
Yeah, they send an away team.
Yeah, to check it out and bring them up.
Yeah, to be because they're like, we don't know what kind of culture this is. They might fucking freak the geek out.
Right.
If we beam them up on a spaceship, so we need to like kind of like ease them into it.
So the man that Picard was just complimenting on his brilliance is trying to explain some extenuating circumstances with the people on the planet, and Picard keeps cutting off. He's like, are they alive? Will they come up? And he's like, yeah, but then beam them up. I don't give a shit.
Shut up,
Captain
Picard out. And they're like these crazy like
they beam them up with their sheep and hay. Hay somehow gets beamed up.
Well,
like somehow O'Brien's like, look, gotta pick that up.
Well, they refuse to
leave their animals,
the goats and the chickens and their stuff with them. Like
that's their livelihood.
Yeah, apparently. Their leader, Danilo Odell,
of course.
Jeez.
So offensive.
He's pretty awesome. He immediately offers to marry his daughter off to Picard.
Picard's like, no thanks.
He's like, no, I'm good.
I'm straight.
I'm straight. I mean, like, I'm straight, but like, you know, like...
She seems more Riker speed.
But he hasn't seen her yet.
Oh, that's true.
Which is funny, too, because when he does see her, he kind of, like...
He's like...
Yeah, he's kind of like, fuck.
He's like, I'll be happy to help her out.
So there's...
Hell yeah, I'll marry your daughter.
There's they start a fire to like cook some food like in the I guess they're all like in the docking bay.
Yeah, they're in a cargo bay, I think.
And the Enterprise immediately the sensors turn on like, oh, fire, man, and they all get
shoot a lightning bolt. Yeah.
Yeah, shoot the lightning bolt.
And they freak the fuck out.
Oh yeah, obviously. So there's like wackiness, and Picard at one point says, "Sometimes, number one, you just have to bow to the absurd."
And he's genuinely smiling.
Which is something like a shirt, like the Hot Topic, like a black shirt with white text.
And Picard's like face, kind of like the Bill Murray shirts you see around now.
And it just says, sometimes you just have to bow to the absurd. Where's that shirt? Is that an Into Dorkness shirt?
That should be.
That's an Into Dorkness shirt. It has to be.
Right?
Right?
The Chive has Bill Murray's face t-shirts. Maybe we could work something out with Peace Stew.
I'm sure he'll be down.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Peace Stew, what's up? We're a big fan of your work. Both Trek and stage. Yeah. And Shakespeare.
We love you, Macbeth. That you quit or X-Men Days of Future Past to make.
What?
That was a joke from a few episodes back.
Oh, was it? Oh, that's right.
They were throwing out McKellen.
Yeah, let's just
fucking quit.
Let's just fucking quit. Let's just do it.
Egging each other on into theater productions.
Like just like sharing a bottle of like scotch, like just passing it back and forth,
and broing out on the set of Days of Future.
I like the fact that McKellen like bros out more than Stewart. I mean, like not to like stereotype or anything, but
well, I mean.
But he's to me he seems like
the more gentle of the two.
And he's more frail. At least he looks more frail.
Well, I think he's a little older, isn't he? Well, he's got that like really skinny, brittle-looking body, and he has even whenever he was younger. He always kind of had that.
That dude was awesome in that Pupil.
He was. I saw a stage production of Macbeth on tape. It was pretty good. With him.
The ending of At Pupil. That was another. We were talking about The Mist before we started recording.
Yes, the film and the book.
They changed the ending to the movie, and Stephen King loved it.
It's an improvement over the ending of the book.
Brutal.
I showed it to Becca on Friday. She'd never seen it before, and like at the end of it, she was just like, "Fuck."
Yeah, it's a punch in the ass.
Yeah. Good movie.
At Pupil, they also changed the ending,
and I think that's a better ending too.
I think so too. It's a lot more ominous.
Yeah, exactly. Because at the end of the book, I mean, spoiler alert if you haven't caught up with Apt Pupil yet.
If you haven't read different seasons.
Yeah. Because in the book, he just goes nuts and starts picking people off on the highway.
Yeah,
it says like it took them 3 hours to bring him down. Or to take him down or something,
like,
right?
I mean, like he goes on a shooting spree.
Right. But he loses his mind and goes on a shooting spree. And in
Mountain Dew Kickstart, the official energy juice of Into Dorkness.
In the movie, the guidance counselor, played by David Schwimmer.
Excellently played.
Yeah, I guess who's been sort of helping... who played the kid?
Brad Renfro, I think.
Brad Renfro.
Who's dead? Is he dead?
I don't know. I think you're thinking of the Coreys.
No, you said Corey. I mentioned Corey Feldman a couple of weeks ago, and you said rest in peace, and I was like, that's not.
He's not dead.
He's not dead. Corey Haim is dead. Jonathan Taylor Thomas is alive. Jonathan Brandis is dead. Brad Renfro, he died. He's dead.
Sad.
Jonathan Brandis killed himself. Brad Renfro, I think, overdosed. Probably, maybe accidentally.
Like that Glee kid.
who was older than us. So,
like
31. Yeah, he's like 31.
Yeah, he was buried on January 22nd, 2008, in Blaine, Tennessee.
But
yeah, so for some reason, he puts two and two together and figures out that, oh,
this guy's a Nazi war criminal and you've been helping him out.
Right, basically, and he's like, and the kid blackmails him.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll tell him that you offered to help me change my grades for sucking your cock or something like that, basically, right?
Yeah.
And the movie just ends with David Schwimmer getting in the car and driving away, and the kid playing basketball,
like just shooting hoops.
I think that's an improvement over that was a pretty good movie. I remember. I saw it when it first came out. I haven't seen it since, but I remember that story was one of the first things I read that actually made me sick to my stomach. Like the whole thing. I read it when I was like 13 or 14. Really.
When the movie came out, I said, "Oh, that looks really interesting," and you said, "Oh, it's based on a short story by Stephen King. You should read it." And you let me borrow different seasons, which is still like one of my favorite collections of like short stories or like novellas.
Novellas, yeah, they're like
because you got the Shawshank Redemption, you got Stand By Me,
yeah, and Apt Pupil, and the last one.
Yeah, I didn't read that one. I started to, but I was like,
it's not. I don't remember it. I remember the first three, like I read them yesterday, but the fourth one, I can't even tell you what it's about.
Like, yeah, I devoured that book.
It's a good book. That might be some of Stephen King's best work. Period.
Anyway, is that a Muse song?
What?
Yeah,
Madness.
Okay.
Yeah, that was...
Muse sounds like what would be playing, like the soundtrack to like a high class orgy, like what you like Eyes Wide Shut type shit. You know?
Yeah, those high class.
Like yeah, exactly. Like it's just, some of those songs, just like I'm like banging like 4 people while I'm listening.
Right,
to this. That's the only
being
way.
Banged by at least 2.
So.
Oh yeah, so Riker gets a look at Irish. Somehow, this beautifully made up Irish woman.
Well, first Danilo's like, "Hey, by the way, Picard, have you heard from the other colony?" And he's like, "What?
What other colony?"
But then they introduce his daughter Brenna.
Brenna
is introduced.
Like the most broadly Irish, like as Irish as you can get without being the character actor who plays her father.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like
the fiery Irish woman.
Get me the most Irish actor of all time. Like, okay, you're Danilo O'Dell. Now give me the second most Irish actress of all time.
Right.
She's foxy and she's
beautiful.
She's like strong-headed, strong-willed.
Yes.
Like she's talking about like, oh, you men are all making the decisions without, we have to do all the work.
She's bossing her dad around.
And basically, like, Picard like takes a look at her and he's like, "Damn, like maybe I should have married her."
Right.
Riker immediately is like boner jams.
Yeah, pushes Picard out of the way to get to her.
And even Worf is like taken by her like
her strength of character.
And he asks her, "Have you ever considered working, or have you ever worked security?" And she says, "If it's anything like babysitting, I'm an expert." And all the women have a good laugh. And Worf's just kind of like, "I don't know how I feel right now.
Yeah, I've got the weirdest boner right now.
I've got a fade." So. Riker ends up like escorting Brenna around the Enterprise, showing her around.
She's like, "Where can a lady wash her feet?" And he's like, "Let me show you all the amenities,
all the feet washing stations we got on the Enterprise." And then they fuck. They have sexy time.
He brings her back to his room,
and she's all like, "Look at my belly and wash my feet."
Well, first she's like, "You're living in an absolute pigsty." He's like, "I can see why your dad drinks so much."
Yeah.
And then she's like, "I still haven't washed my feet." And he's like, "Oh, there's water in there." And she's like, "Are you gay?"
And then she like takes off
her skirt, dress number 1.
Yeah, like she's wearing like
a sweater bippy top.
it's like a skirt that like goes like up to like
over the belly button,
and
a top that stops just under the boob.
Yeah.
So there's a tiny bit of midriff showing.
But like she takes that off and she's got like a skirt underneath
that matches the top.
Yeah. So it's kind of like almost like an apron type thing.
Yeah.
She's got going on. Takes that off, you see her belly, and she's like, "What's wrong? Don't you like girls?"
And he's like,
I gotta look at my boner.
Tears right through his Starfleet uniform. He's like, these things are basically made of paper.
These things they're tearaway. They're meant to be tearaways. After Captain Kirk, they're like, look.
Yeah, clearly that guy ruined so many uniforms. We gotta stop spending so much money on uniforms. Like,
we gotta stop spending so much money on uniforms.
So they make sweet, sweet love.
Meanwhile, Danilo he's like potato brewing some whiskey or something.
Yeah, he's trying to put together a still. Yeah. And is it Worf?
Yeah, and he's like, "Dude, we can just make you like, if you want something to drink, I can get you something to drink."
And he's like, "Not that synthahol bullshit."
And he's like, "No."
Is that the first mention of synthahol on the show?
No. I don't know. Maybe.
I feel like it is. I don't know.
And Worf replicates him some like whiskey, some actual whiskey, kind of like Old Boy had, and that episode where they were cryogenically frozen.
Yes.
But that guy loved it. Odell, he's not having it. So Worf orders him some Klingon hooch, and Daedalus loves it.
Yeah, the same stuff that Pulaski couldn't drink, right? Or had to have an antidote. No, that was just tea.
That was just tea. This was like
a cauldron, like
Klingon hooch. Yeah, Daedalus loves it. Brenna bursts in. She chides them both.
Oh, well,
she's like, I just got my rocks off. What are you doing?
Riker's leaking down my leg right now, but you're drinking. Odell's got a great line in there too about like every moment of pleasure must be bought with an equal moment of pain, and immediately after
Brenna walks in, she's like, and he says, "There's the pain."
I leave you alone for 5 minutes.
The bridge makes contact with the Granger of Mariposa,
which is number 2 colony.
The other colony, and they're like crazy advanced, like a utopia almost.
Yeah.
Troy says that they're hiding something. Sometimes that's all she's good for, is just to be like, oh, they're lying or something.
You might want to look around. She's like the dungeon master. I suggest you look around a little bit more.
Yeah, I do that a lot.
Well, you have to, because you're basically playing with babies.
Yeah, eventually you'll be like, we should do this.
Yeah, shut up, dungeon master.
It turns out everyone's like a freaky clone. There's like 6 people on the planet. They're all clones of each other.
Yeah, but the cloning machinery, or basically what's happened is they call it the fade, the cloning fade.
It's called what is it? It's like a replicative fading.
Yeah, which basically it's like Xeroxing, right? Like
it's like a copy of a copy of a copy.
Right, which to me doesn't quite make sense, because if you've got the genetic tissue, everyone should be the first copy.
Yeah, true.
Unless you're copying from the copies, which is a stupid way to do business.
Yes.
But anyway...
They're all like retarded Dalmatians now.
But fine, whatever. Again, the episode, like, you think it's going to be all about the Irish people, and suddenly in, like, the 3rd act, they introduce this entire other plot. Like, they jam in a second episode, and it's like, how do we deal with the Irish people? I don't know, let's introduce another subplot.
And so...
They beam down, and they're like... They tell them, like, yeah, we're all clones. We think sex is uggy.
Yeah, it's oogie.
It's nasty pants.
It's like in Demolition Man.
Oh, yeah, where they have the headsets.
And Sandra Bullock's like Stallone's like, let's fucking do this. And she's like you know, like exchanging bodily fluids. Oh my god, grody.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, we need fresh DNA. We want you guys. And Riker's like, fuck that. There's only one Commander Riker. And he just fucking got laid.
Am I right, Brenna?
Getting laid. He bros out.
Yeah, he bros out. No, he does say, he says one Riker is unique. Dare I say special. Yeah. I'm like, okay,
dude, all right. We know you just got your rocks off and all that, but come on. Like, I mean, it seemed like Brenna was like, you know,
but he's
looking to let off some steam from a stressful situation. It could have been Data for all she cared.
But 1,000. But he has a great line. He's like, 1,000 to me diminishes me in ways you can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. Yeah.
And so they're like, no thanks. But they get kidnapped by him.
Yeah. Again, it seems like an Act 2 thing happening like in the last 15 minutes. Exactly. I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Geordi. Then this is interesting, because last week. You made a joke that Geordi could tell whether, with his visor,
whether Wesley had pubes or not
through his uniform.
Right.
And in this episode, Geordi reveals that he can, like, he uses, like, his visor lets him see things that, you know, he's like Daredevil essentially, because he can tell that someone lies because, like,
a human person, as long as they're human,
because like changes in their like the
blush,
in the blush and their temperature, stuff like that,
pulse, things like that.
And Pulaski runs it like because. They were kidnapped, but they don't remember it.
Yeah, they were basically date raped. They were roofied.
Yeah.
And, like, they had stuff stuck in their tummies. They had cells stolen from the
They're missing some tummy cells.
Yeah,
which are like the best cells for cloning, apparently.
The choicest nugs.
It's like, look, obviously, we'd want tummy cells. We can't get tummy cells, we'll settle for butt.
Butt cells.
Which are the second best. But not as good. I mean, it's like a distant second.
Yeah.
Butt cells are a distant second.
For sure.
They head back and destroy their weirdo clones, and then they're like, "What are we gonna do? We're gonna die."
You condemned us all to death.
And what's their solution?
Their solution is, well,
why don't you just fuck each other?
Yeah, that's right. And they're like, "Oh, we can't do that." So Odell's people need a new planet. Mariposa needs a base because the 5 of them can't just keep fucking each other. Yeah. So basically, they agree. They make an agreement to intermarry.
Just a bunch of free love for.
But yeah, they make the rule in the episode, which I thought this was kind of ballsy and weird though. They make the rule in the episode you can't actually marry.
Yeah.
Basically, every woman needs to have 3 different children by 3 different men.
Yep.
And they don't bring the women into this conversation at all. Like, the two
like,
men running the colonies.
Yeah.
And Pulaski and Picard.
And they're not going to be like, hey, women, are you down with, like, having 3 dudes, like,
Right, basically being livestock for breeding.
Pound babies into you? Is that cool?
Right. You don't really get a choice. You have to make babies.
And Brenna is like, fuck this noise.
Makes a genuine philosophical point.
And she's like, you know what, like that it's my life. I should be able to do whatever I want. Like, you guys are making decisions about my body and who I am.
Right.
Who do you think you are, Rick Perry? And
Zing.
And then Granger or whoever shows up, the mayor of Mariposa Town or whatever.
He's like the prime minister.
And he's like, oh, hey, I'm the prime minister. And she's like, oh, you're rich and well-to-do. Yeah. Like, all right, this won't be so bad.
She's like, 3 husbands. Like, I guess that meaning, like, all the children will be provided for, something like the riches of being a polyandrous.
Which is bullshit, man.
Yeah, that they completely undercut, like, this strong character with
yeah,
this
she should have
cheap, vapid woman sort of... I mean, it's a cute moment, but it comes at the expense of a really interesting character's integrity. But womp womp.
Yeah, that's what.
Picard's like, I'm gonna go battle absurdity in my bunk.
Our next episode is Manhunter,
which is a badass title. Which turns out it's a different sort of manhunt.
Yeah,
it's not as much about Hannibal.
I thought it would have been like about Worf or something. I don't know.
I thought it was going to be an adaptation of Red Dragon by Thomas Harris.
These crazy aliens show up, and everyone except Worf thinks that they're grody.
They're like H.P. Lovecraft aliens.
Worf, he says, "What a handsome race." Which is like
the nicest racist thing you can say.
Is it racist?
Well, just saying an entire race, like, the Asians, they're a beautiful race. I mean,
a cunning people.
Right, exactly. The Jews are a cunning people.
Well, I mean...
I don't know. I mean, it's a compliment, but it's blindly, like, saying an entire... Like, putting a blanket on.
I mean, it's like...
I don't know if it's racist.
No, I don't think it's racist. Because, I mean, like, you have to think, like, they look completely different. I mean,
from any other life form he's ever encountered.
Exactly. So I mean, like, if someone was like, if an alien saw like a human person, like, you know, they got hair, they got, you know, the women got the titties and the dudes got the dongs, and they got knees and elbows and stuff, and like
also sexy.
If they were like, you know, like that's the basis of humanity, right?
Right.
There.
That's the
dicks or titties, knees and elbows, hair and stuff. If someone was
somebody's been taking cloning lessons,
and if someone was like,
hey,
like that's a hand, like I like the way that all those things are put together.
Yeah, I like them titties and dongs. Can you get them both on the same thing?
Yeah, but
in special cases,
really special cases, and for some reason we're not cool with that.
No, we're a little weirded out by that.
I mean,
nobody should have the best of everything.
Okay, that's like asking for too much.
Yeah, that's a real monkey's paw kind of.
It's a real monkey's paw type situation going on there where they got the dog.
Be careful what you wish for.
Okay.
That's all we're saying. I'm going to get some more soda. Ham it up.
So, Troy's mom shows up again for some more cougar wackiness. Apparently, Picard is still thinking about stuffing her.
Yep.
I mean, essentially this...
She's going through menopause.
And that makes her, like, crazy horners.
Betazoid menopause. Which is, like, I think, because she's explaining it to Picard... Right? And Troy is, and he's like, oh yes, we have that, like, menopause. And she's like, oh, this is like menopause extreme.
And, and Riker's like, yeah, Troy told me about that. And she's like, it's about, like, 4 times as, like, much. And he's like, whoa, you didn't tell me about that.
She's like, I didn't want to frighten you. And I really like their chemistry in that scene.
Yeah.
It was a real nice... Those two have a very easy chemistry that I really like.
And so...
I can see why they used to fuck.
She tries to... Troy's mom tries to... They have dinner with Picard.
He thinks that the entire crew, the bridge crew, has been invited to this state dinner with this ambassador because she's been made an ambassador.
With Lurch.
So he's put on his dress uniform, his Starfleet dress.
Yeah.
And he shows up in her private quarters, and she's wearing fuck clothes. And nobody else is there. He asks Pulaski, he's like, aren't you coming to dinner? And she's like, already ate. No thanks,
My
I
tummy's
already
full.
ate. Like Zoe Deschanel trying to sneak past with the Simon and Garfunkel album and her. We watched Almost Famous earlier today.
That was the Pancake Sunday viewing choice.
Anyway, yeah.
Hamburgers for the Apocalypse.
Yeah. That's Nick Swartzen, I think.
It is. Daryl and I discussed what that meant.
What does that mean?
Well, he talks about Nick Swartzen's character says the new stuff is good. It's like I prefer older Bowie. The new stuff is good, but it's mass market. It's like hamburgers for the apocalypse.
Meaning that culture is dying, and here's something tasty.
Yeah, like here's something.
You.
Like here's something. Like it's like the apocalypse of the music of rock and roll. Like it's imploding on itself. Like music is awful, and this is just something that that'll satisfy you, that tastes good. But I mean,
it's not good for you, and it's not lasting.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense.
And then he freaks out when he sees them.
Oh my God, it's Bowie! It's a good moment.
Well, yeah,
anyway,
so
Picard,
she's in the phase.
Right, and Picard's at this dinner, and she's like rubbing her leg on him, and
he quickly realizes like what's going on.
He's fallen into a fuck trap, a man trap, if you will.
And so like every time, and this is a callback to the first time we ran into Troy's parents, or her mother, I should say,
Mama.
Whenever they eat, the manservant like rings like a little gong, like bing, as a way to like
say thank you for the food.
And Picard's like, "Oh, that's crazy! Like I didn't that's really interesting. Like I wonder what kind of other cultures have that." He's like, "Data, can you tell me all about that?" And usually, like he's always the one to shut Data up.
Shut up
when he's going on and on about whatever. But he's just like, yeah, tell us more. Like, this is crazy. Isn't this interesting?
And she's like falling asleep at the table.
And
so Data shows up and basically starts talking about math. He starts talking math and trajectory and anecdotes that are like scientific word problems that he worked out. And basically Data gets him out of the sitch.
And then
as they're walking in the hall,
there's one part where after I guess you realize like, oh, Picard's it's not going to be Picard. I need to find someone else. She walks onto the bridge where Riker is, and she thinks like her and Troy
Deanna,
are speaking telepathically, communicating with their mind.
They're having a brain chat.
And she's like, "What about him?" And Deanna's like, "No, not him."
Right.
And she's like, "Why not? Like he's adorable." And she's like, "Yeah, no, like."
Because she wants him, she still thinks.
Well, that's still weird. I mean, like.
Also, that's your daughter's ex.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't want to.
Like, if you had a son.
Well, I don't think that my daughter would want to, bang anyone that. Or my
mother. Or your dad would want to bang anybody you bang.
Well, I don't think my daughter would want her mom banging anyone that she's banged.
Right, that's really upsetting.
And so Troy, it's pretty upsetting, right?
Right. Marvin Gaye died over.
Okay,
something
that shit's serious. That choice reference, man. Well done. Well done.
That haunts me every day.
They go to the holodeck, and Picard I guess he just wants to unwind.
Well, he also wants to hide from her.
That's true. So he does one of his...
Because they keep telling her she's looking for him.
Oh, yeah, and he's like, he's busy. He's doing
on ship's business. So he goes into Dixon Hill.
One of his Dixon Hills stories.
Novelettes.
Which, why is it, I forgot, it freaks out for a while. It keeps getting, super violent on him.
Well, basically, it's running through the typical tropes of a Dixon Hill story, I guess. And he keeps asking it to change the parameters, but, the stories themselves, I guess, are just so violent. Apparently the computer...
he just wants to chillax.
Right, in that world.
Yeah, he just wants to, just
and the
take it easy.
computer doesn't understand, I guess, which is crazy because in the Sherlock Holmes episode, Geordi's just it's like the retarded kid who's trying too hard to please in the Sherlock Holmes episode. In this one, it's just how about this type of gun? How about this type of gun?
Oh, you don't want that gun. What about this kind of gun? You want a knife instead? No, I don't want anything.
So finally he gets it to leave him alone, and he takes his secretary on a date.
Mama Troy finds him.
Yes, at the bar.
And falls in love with the bartender, and she's like, you want to...
Because she can't read his thoughts.
Yeah.
Which only a strong man...
Which, she thinks it's, sexy as hell. She's like, I like that. I like that about you.
Yeah. But like Data's there in costume because Data finds out Riker's going to get him, and he's like, "Give me 5 minutes."
Data's like, "I get to dress up, yay!"
He gets to play dress up.
And Picard, that was kind of sad when Picard's like, "Hey, that's not a real person. That's a computer."
And she's like, "Why would you do that to me?"
Yeah, that was kind of sad.
It is. Well, it's like she's ridiculous, but she's still a person, and that the fact that they don't tell her right away, but at the same time, she's fuck nuts.
Yeah, she is literally fuck nuts.
She is the villain of this episode.
And then, meanwhile, this whole thing, they have these two Antidean ambassadors.
Right, these two Cthulhus.
They're in this, like the handsome race.
They're in stasis and
they're like in a coma, kind of.
Right, until they
self-induced.
Get
like it's like a hibernation.
Right. And
so they finally come to, and they're supposed to go to this like conference, this ambassadors conference or whatever. Right. And they're about to beam out of the Enterprise. When Mama Troy is like...
walks in and says something kind of offensive, and they're like, "Hey, blah, 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 these are the ambassadors from Antidea."
And she's like, "Bullshit, those are assassins."
They've got clothes under the blah, 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 but they're wearing... what are they wearing?
They're like cloaks.
Yeah, these cloaks that have a material that makes weapons almost undetectable, and Data's like...
Like, it's an explosive that the teleporter can't pick up.
Right.
And they're going to blow up the entire conference.
Boom.
And Mama Troy is like, "Oh, I can read your thoughts." Like, even though I'm sex nuts, which is supposed to like kind of hinder.
Fuck with it.
Yeah, she's like, "Oh, I can read those. I can read that like the back of my hand."
She saves the day.
And yeah,
Picard's like, "Send him to the brig, Worf. You can do whatever you want to." Prisoners of war, man.
They turn off the camera in the room.
Oh God.
And it ends with Worf like chuckling and cracking his knuckles. That would have been a nice episode.
That would have been dark. Again, this is a very domestic week. There aren't a lot of like major problems to be solved. It's like little like, "Oh, how are we going to get the clones to fuck each other?
How are we?
How are we going to save Picard's penis from Troy's mom?"
The next episode is the Emissary. We see...
This is a Worf episode.
This is a Worf episode. We see...
Again, a very domestic episode.
The Spock equivalent of a Klingon, which is half human, half Klingon.
And it's the lady who played the sexy Vulcan doctor a few episodes back. Mm-hmm. With that actress, I forget her name, but...
Susie Plexon.
Yeah, and she's in several Trek shows. She shows up again and again. She's one of those like Trek actors who just shows up again and again in different characters. Yeah, she's an ambassador who's sent basically by missile tube. Or she's traveling in a Class A probe, I think.
Yeah. Admiral Gromek is like, "Hey, you need to...
pick up this ambassador.
But
Emissary.
We can't tell you why. It's like super top secret."
You'll see when she gets there.
And they open it up, and it's a Klingon lady. Woo. And apparently she has some history with Worf.
Yeah, Worf's like, fucking great.
Like, and like, will you like take care? Like, someone's like, "Hey, will you like, make sure she's settled and all that?"
Worf's like, "I really don't want to."
And it's like, "Is that professional or personal?" And he's like, "Can it be both?"
Yeah, exactly. Picard has that moment where he basically spanks him. He's like, "Do you have a personal problem?" And he's like, "Yes." "Do you have a professional problem?" "I withdraw my request." Yeah. And Picard's like, "Fucking good."
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I'm the boss of you. Do what I say. Although it is kind of mean. Like, I guess, though, he's like, "Look, be a professional. Just do your job. I shouldn't have to babysit you."
For sure.
I babysit Wesley all the goddamn time.
Seriously. Was he in any of these episodes?
He's around. He saw the Antideans at the beginning or end of the episode.
Oh, that's right.
So he pops in every now... Oh, and she sees Wesley on the bridge and considers him for a moment as a possible fuck partner. She's like, "But you're too young."
He's like 16 at this point?
Yeah, so like he's able...
What's the age of consent?
In Starfleet.
And so Starfleet.
Humans. Because there's got to be a different one based on each race,
because,
right?
I mean...
They reach maturity.
Each species, I should say.
Well, and do they measure it by Earth years? Like, I could do it, like, is an Antidean 18 of our Earth years? What if it's only 3 months for them?
Well, I mean, I guess, like, I don't know, age of consent is weird. Like, how is it okay to, like, fuck a 14-year-old in, like, Florida or wherever, like...
Is that really the law?
Like, let's look up
age of consent.
Age of consent. I mean, you can look up
all kinds of things on the internet.
It's a wonderful invention. Thank you, Al Gore. But no, it's there are some laws like let's see.
Are bug nuts.
Arizona, like Arkansas, 16. I think the lowest in the U.S. is actually 16, but there are a lot of them where it's 16. Like
isn't Texas 17?
Texas is 17 where we live, but I mean that's just bananas. That's like crazy town that like a 38-year-old dude could bone down with a 16-year-old, and it's like in Oklahoma,
as long as it's consensual.
And she's like, "Yeah, I'll fuck you,"
right?
And he's like, "Sweet."
The 16-year-old clearly making good life decisions with the 38-year-old. Like, he gets me.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, you're so mature for your age.
You're super mature for your age."
Like, I'm so impressed by you right now.
I really dig your poetry.
Danielle, your poetry means a lot. I'm going to help you get an agent, and
you should know. No, you should. This should be published. No, really? Absolutely.
Yeah, you're going to make a fortune.
Like, absolutely.
Poets always get rich if they're good, as you are.
And that's bananas, right?
Yes,
like,
it's upsetting.
Like, there shouldn't be any age of consent. Not to say like you should be able to bang whoever you want, but like just no one should have sex ever.
I mean, to me, it seems like even 18 like seems awfully like. I have an age appropriate thing, and I'm not saying that obviously there aren't couples that can work that way. I mean, when I was 25, I went on a date with an 18-year-old, and I wanted to kill myself at the end of it. She was a perfectly nice person, but it was like we had nothing to talk about. I mean, she was very cute, and that's why I asked her on a date. But like at the end of it, I was just like, I feel like a dirty old man. I'm not going to touch you. I am going to move on with my life.
I'm not going to touch you.
No, I don't think that it was morally wrong, and I don't think it's morally wrong for anybody else. But for me, it's just such a weird thing. Like I kind of like to stay in sort of a 2 to 3 year ahead or behind gap. With your stories of your successful large gap year romance.
I mean, like, yeah, it's not impossible, obviously. I mean, there's just...
There's stumbling blocks, I think. You don't have a common frame of reference, and your frontal cortex is at a different stage of development at 25 than at 18.
That's the thing, man. Like...
Your brain actually doesn't finish developing until you're 25, I think, right?
Like, right on your 25th birthday.
Ding!
Ding!
Your
like
brain reaches midnight.
It's like baking.
The egg timer in your mind is done.
I don't know, that's the thing, too, is, like, even with, like, a 5-year gap. Like the references, aren't they don't get the references.
No, it feels wrong. Like you're like, oh yeah, Full House ended when I was like in kindergarten. I'm like, oh, I was in 6th grade.
Well, I think we're still at an age. We're both 30. We're still at an age where that's like 5 year, like 25 to 30. Like it's still very formative.
Right.
Like I mean, if you're like 50 and you're dating a 45-year-old, who gives a shit?
Right.
Like that doesn't, like you've lived your life, like you figured it out.
If you're 50 dating a 40-year-old or even like somebody in their late 30s, I think that's even like I think once you're past like 35 or whatever, like
who cares?
Anybody over the age of 35, start dating 70-year-olds.
Why not?
If that's your cup of tea. Or if you're 18 and you've just got really particular tastes.
But yeah, it's crazy that like the age of consent is 16.
Yeah,
that's crazy town.
Yeah, I don't. It's got to be such a weird thing to legislate.
Like, yeah, and like
you want to protect your young ones.
That's another thing too. Is like
legislating sexuality.
Like who decides like okay, like yeah, by 16 you should be able to figure out like I want to bone down with this dude or this lady, whatever.
Make a major life decision about whose privates to put in yours.
There's a song by Taylor Swift. It's called 15.
Oh no!
And it's about like when you're 15, like your problems seem like so big. And there's a great line, something like your dreams are bigger than dating the captain of the football team or something like that. And she references like a friend. She's like, and Abigail, gave everything to a guy who changed his mind, and some feminists were like, oh, well, that's not everything, But too, like, I mean, I can't imagine because I was never a 15-year-old girl, but just based on what I've been told, I mean, some like that's a big deal to some girls.
I think sex is a big deal. Period. For
especially the first time.
Yeah, and I mean, look, if you expect to marry the first person you have sex with, then don't start having sex in high school.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? That's all I have to say about that. Like, but the problem is when you're that young, you think like you really are like this person's the person I'm in love with. Forever.
Yeah, and that's another line of the song.
You have no fucking frame of
reference. It's like when you're 15, like you think you have it all figured out, or you think like you
think you know better.
She is such a good songwriter. My God, she is so good.
She's wise beyond her years.
I've been catching so much flack lately. It's because my level of admiration has skyrocketed.
Yeah, you went from being a casual fan to a believer.
I'm a T Swifter. I'm a Swift boater.
That has a positive connotation.
I got into an argument with my daughter's mother about custody and all that. I don't want to talk about it. No, about Taylor Swift. And she's like,
took a left turn.
She said that she didn't think Taylor Swift was talented, and I was like, really?
Well, I don't think you're talented.
And
how does that feel? Not good, right?
I was like, really? What about Stevie Nicks? She's like, oh yeah, Stevie Nicks is amazing. I love Stevie Nicks. I was like, Stevie Nicks loves Taylor Swift.
What do you think about that?
And I pointed out like Neil Young says she's a great songwriter.
Explain.
Neil Young, James Taylor, Steven Tyler.
Some of the great songwriters of the 20th century.
Dude looks like a lady. Changed my life.
Well, Dream On is one of the great
Dream On is so good.
In rock history, yeah.
But like James Taylor, like Neil freaking Young.
Yeah.
Stephen Stills.
From Scott Pilgrim? He's the leader of the band in Scott Pilgrim.
Oh, maybe that's a reference to him.
It's got to be a reference.
I mean, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and sometimes Young.
Occasionally Young.
Occasionally when he's not hanging out with Crazy Horse.
Velvet Underground.
His band
and Nico?
You know why they called it that?
Because Nico joined the band for that album?
Well, I mean, she was a member of the band.
Oh.
But they
wanted her out front and center?
Well, the band was like, dude, we're already a band. We wanted to show, like, you know, this is us and her. It's not like, you know, she's not a part of us. Like,
right. We teamed up for this. It's like Batman versus Superman coming to theaters in 2015. Velvet Underground and Nico.
I've been listening to a lot of Lou Reed lately as well.
You like Lou Reed?
I like
the early stuff.
Well, see, that's the thing. Like, does the early stuff, does he mean?
I don't know.
Because, okay.
You know so much more about music than I do.
In Almost Famous, when William is talking to Lester Bangs.
On the sidewalk.
He says, Lester Bangs, who, like, the person was a huge Lou Reed fan.
Right.
He asked William, he's like, you like Lou Reed? And he says, the early stuff. His newer stuff, he's trying to be Bowie.
He should just be himself.
The movie is set in 1973, which Transformer, which was like Lou Reed's like breakout like solo album, because his first self-titled album like didn't do well at all.
Right.
Came out in 72, and it was produced by David Bowie and by David Bowie's guitarist. So I mean, like, it's
interesting.
It's natural that it would sound and
it would have a Bowie sound
a vibe, and he kind of wanted to get that same audience, you know.
Right.
And it was a little glammy at points. But I mean, by early stuff, does he mean like his first album or like the Velvet Underground?
I don't know. I would guess probably the Velvet Underground.
Yeah, maybe. But Transformer's so good.
What album is Street Hustle on? That's an amazing song.
I don't know. I've just been listening to Transformer over. Okay. Like in the past week, I might have listened to that entire album.
Right?
Street Hustle.
Yeah, it's the song that ends the movie, The Squid and the Whale. I've
never seen that movie.
You should see that movie. Also, it'll make you feel horrible.
Okay.
But it's really good. It's Jesse Eisenberg is like 12 in it or whatever. He's really young, but it's good. I mean, it's painful, but it's a really good movie, and it's got a great soundtrack that ends with a Lou Reed song.
I've been Transformers, what I've been listening to.
Check out
it's a great
Street
album.
Hustle. It's a good song. It's like 12 minutes long. Well, maybe not 12, but it's long. It's like 9 minutes. Anyway, Star Trek. What?
So,
Age of Consent.
Age of Consent in Star Trek is 12.
So Wesley and Mrs. Troy could have...
They bang. Oh, that's in my slash fiction.
She made him a man.
That's... Okay, so we'll talk about slash fiction later. So, yeah, Worf is ordered to work with her, and he's like, I don't want to do this, but he does it anyway. It turns out that they were supposed to get married, right?
Who were
Worf and Kaliar, whatever. What's her name?
They had history. I don't know if they were supposed to get married, or he wanted to, but she.
Well, she goes into the holodeck.
She's a self-loathing Klingon, as Josh puts it.
She goes into the holodeck.
She uses his exercise program.
Yeah, she's
without permission.
She's like list of programs, and she's like, oh, Worf's calisthenic program.
And she's fighting Skeletors. And
I love those aliens when they show up on the holodeck with the skull face heads.
Yeah, like, what alien is that?
And so she's doing it. Worf shows up. And they bone down.
She's like, well, she shows up and she's like, your workout sucks. And he's like, start level 2. And then shit gets real.
Yeah.
And that's when they get all horny and they fuck. Apparently they never have before. And afterwards, Worf is like...
That's when he's like, I gotta marry you now.
Yeah, Worf is like Ned Flanders. He's like, first...
I spilled my seed in you.
Right, you could have our baby inside of you right now, so I've got to do the right thing. And she's like, I don't want to marry you.
Yeah, she like...
I just wanted to fuck.
Yeah, which I thought was like cool.
Yeah.
Like,
it hurt his feelings though, which is
like
sad.
that kind of like I like that like
reversal of those gender norms.
Like where it's always like
where she's like, "Oh, you're just gonna run off now that I gave you everything."
Sorry, babe.
Yeah. She's more like, "Sorry, babe. We got to kill those Klingons," and he's like, "No, it's not."
But there's these.
That's the whole reason she's there. There's a ship that's I guess been in cryo.
Yeah. Since before the Klingon Federation truce.
So yeah, these guys are due to come out of stasis, and since they don't know, that the entire world's changed, they could potentially kill a lot of innocent people.
Yeah, like they'll just go into default mode, like, oh, let's blow up some Federation ship.
Right, that's our jam. That's what we do. We're Klingons, and her job is to find a solution, and she thinks there is only one solution, which is blow them up. Blow them out of the sky. You can't talk them out of this. They're Klingons. They would rather die than compromise.
But instead...
Worf's like, no, I've been living on this starship, and I've learned that there's always more than one solution to a problem, which I liked.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they do come out of their stasis, their cryogenic coma.
And they're doing exactly
and they start firing on the Enterprise.
They cloak themselves and open fire.
Immediately. And so what they do is Picard and Riker like dip out of the bridge.
It's Worf's idea. Worf's like, I have a plan.
Worf like gets in like
full Klingon garb.
Like captain. I'm the captain of the ship garb.
Right.
And
gets her to get into garb too.
And they like hail them, and they're like, "Hey, dude, the war's over." And they're like, no, it's not. Like, how could it be over? Like, and he's like, "Dude, look at me. Believe your eyes, dude. I'm the captain of this ship, this Federation ship." And
you can either surrender to me,
or you're dead.
We'll destroy you.
And he's like, I'm not gonna do it. Like, it's a trick. It's a Federation trick. And he's like, all right, fucking blow him up then.
And they're like, ah!
And they're like, okay, wait, hold on.
We believe you.
Like, okay, never mind. Like, all right, shit, damn. All right.
Damn.
Shit. Wow.
I just woke up from cryo sleep.
I'm a little foggy. I don't know.
This isn't my fault.
Okay, everyone just cool out.
Just let's take a chill pill.
All right. And so that works. And later,
Picard's like, nicely done.
Yeah, and later Riker, he's like, how'd it feel, like being in, kind of being in command?
Right.
And Worf, all he says is comfortable chair.
Yeah, nicely done.
And so
she leaves, but she's like, I almost took the oath with you. Yeah. I wanted to, but I still got a lot of shit to do before I'm ready to settle down and raise Klingon pups.
But we will meet again.
Yeah, and I think they do. I think she comes back at least once. So.
For sure.
Pretty good episode. I liked it. Again, very domestic. Like, there's not a lot of like, I mean, there's a problem to be solved, but it doesn't. It's really more about the conflict between Worf and his ex-girlfriend.
Our next episode is Peak Performance. Probably the episode of the week.
Yeah, I would say that.
This gets my stamp of approval.
It reminds me of that episode of the classic series where they have to do the war game with the computer. The doctor has designed the dual circuit computer that's supposed to be able to run the ship without people, but a little different.
They get a dude named Sirma Kalrami, who is a crazy, amazing strategist.
Right. What race is Zokdorn?
Zokdorn.
Yeah.
And there's a game of Strajima, which that's what they
he's like a grandmaster, like
Poobah, like Grand Poobah.
Yeah. What do you call the head chess guys? The guys, is it a grandmaster?
Yeah.
Okay.
A grand dragon of Strajima.
It's ancient Earth. They don't realize that it's offensive.
And so it's a game where you like have these sensors on your fingers and you move them around to
color blocks.
The color blocks apparently, and the more colored blocks you have that are your color, that's when you win.
Basically, it's sort of like tic-tac-toe in as much as you're trying to fill up the squares before the other person does, and you can block them based on where you put stuff, I think.
And Riker's like, hey, let's play, and he's like...
he's taken out in 8 moves.
Like, Kohlrami's like, dude, like, not even... and he's like very cocky and arrogant.
He's mean about it. He's like, I don't like Riker. And he doesn't like Riker.
Yeah, for some reason.
Well, he thinks that his history shows that he's...
Well, like, he revealed... I mean, you don't know that at first.
Right. First off, he's just a dick, and Riker's like, hey, man, I just wanted to play.
And so...
a grand poobah.
And so the simulation is going to be a battle between the Enterprise and the ship called the Hathaway, the Anne Hathaway.
Yes. Named for the famous...
And it's all going to be, like,
actors.
simulated. Like, they... Essentially, like, they wire the ships to, like... It's like laser tag, essentially.
Right. That it'll send and register hits, but no actual damage will be done. And
like the ship will have to quote close off parts of it, that are damaged.
Right. I don't know why they had to rewire the ship for it. Like, it seems like they should have a simulation program, but whatever. It makes the episode more interesting.
And in fact, the Hathaway is
it's a derelict.
Can't go to warp drive. It's pretty much useless. All it is a floating tube.
Right. So Riker's given charge of the Hathaway, and he gets to pick a crew.
Picard and Riker. Picard versus Riker.
Head to head. What we've all been waiting for.
He picks Worf, Geordi, and Wesley.
Doesn't Data go? Or Data stays?
Data stays, I think.
Okay. Oh, you're right. Wesley and, because they don't cheat exactly, but they definitely bend rules.
For sure.
I liked that.
So Pulaski persuades Data to play the Zokdorn
at
Strajima. Yeah. And thinking, like, there's no way he can beat you. Like, you're a robot.
Yeah.
But he does...
He's putting it to use now.
But he does lose. And the Zokdorn like, oh, yeah, like, that wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. Like, whatever.
Right.
Data thinks that he's malfunctioning because he's supposed to be infallible.
That's right. So he leaves the bridge and starts running self-diagnostics in his little corner, in his quarters, right?
Yeah, and Pulaski's like, look, dude, like, it's okay. Like, losing bruises the ego. And he's like, I don't have an ego. It's like, it's disheartening, but I don't have it. I know you don't have... I get it.
I know better than anyone. You're not human.
But I don't. But
actually, they've kind of come around. They're almost buddies in this episode.
A little bit, yeah.
Like, I think if they'd kept her around, that probably would have grown into a real friendship.
Well, I mean, I'm starting to warm up to Pulaski.
Right as she's about.
I mean, just because she does.
She has an arc.
She does start off as cold, and then once she starts to serve on the ship more
and gets to know everybody,
she's like, okay, like, this dude is actually more human than a lot of us in many ways.
And she's also kind of become one of the guys. Like, she's always hanging out
playing poker and stuff. Yeah,
exactly.
Which there was a poker scene
in this episode.
Yeah,
right? It opens.
Was it this episode?
I thought it was this one, wasn't it?
Well, there's a great poker scene where Worf beats Pulaski, and
that's right.
And he has a great line. She's like, you took my last chip. Do you have anything else to say? And he's like, he says like your deal or something like that. Like, always,
always with the one-liners.
Well, he's always focused,
practical.
Like, what do you do with? I guess for shore leave, you can use that money.
Yeah, or
buy a Moroccan hooker.
I don't know, because they're not supposed to even have money, so are they just playing for chips?
Maybe, yeah.
Like, maybe they're just playing to play?
Yeah, just to play, yeah.
Or maybe it does have something to do with shore leave or chores, like duties. Like latrine duty. Like on Firefly, they would play for chores, like doing dishes, or who would have to deal with the latrine. So maybe it's something to do with that. Rob, let us know. Or Josh, David, Mary Beth.
Anyone
Tits.
Any one of you IDs.
Yeah.
Any one of you IDs. And so Pulaski talks to Picard. He's like, "Look, you need to tell Data that you need to restore his she's like, as ridiculous as this sounds, you need to restore his confidence," which Picard does.
How does he do it? I don't know.
He just said hey, you're a fine officer. You shouldn't doubt yourself.
Right. Just because you lost a game.
Yeah. Meanwhile, also Picard has had it with freaking Cyrna's throwing shade Riker's way. Like, he pulls him off the bridge. He's like, look, you motherfucker. Ever since you came aboard the ship, you've been throwing shade my homie's way. He's the best fucking officer I've ever had. What the fuck is your deal? And he's like,
he's not by the book.
He's not by the book. He's
dickhead.
Like, he's too jovial for such a high-ranking position.
And he said, Picard has a great line. He's like, don't mistake style for, what's the line? It's a great line. Like, I remember thinking, like, Like, don't mistake style for bearing or something like that.
Well, he says, like, maybe it's that jovial nature that he has, that's what instills loyalty. I mean, kind of like, it's like, don't mistake kindness for weakness.
Don't confuse style with intent. I think that's the line. Only a fool would question Riker's dedication to Starfleet, yada, yada.
I mean, it's kind of like, don't mistake kindness for weakness, that kind of thing,
exactly. That's how he inspires their loyalty, like by showing, it's the way Kirk did it, like by showing fearlessness and cheerfulness.
And they end up, the Hathaway crew ends up kind of cheating. Wesley sneaks something on board the Enterprise that'll make them think that they're seeing one thing when they don't, like an illusion, pretty much.
Basically, his science project happens to have like what they need to make the illusion of this weapon. No, to cloak themselves and make themselves look like a different sort of ship.
Well, they see a fake image of a Romulan warship that's attacking them, and so they're like, "Oh shit, the Romulans!" So they turn to face them,
and then the
Hathaway, they're like, "Oh, it's gone!" And then they get hit from behind by the Hathaway.
And they're like, we got you, dude.
Well, then it turns. Then actually, a Ferengi warship actually does show up.
And they're like, and they're like, "Shut up, fakers!"
And the Ferengi like cripples the Enterprise.
Yeah, and they're like, "What are you guys doing?"
And it's because Picard is like, "Oh, you fakers," and doesn't do anything about it, and so they get hit. And so they hail the Ferengi, and Picard's like, "Dude, what the hell is wrong? Why are you attacking a Federation ship?" And he's like, "Why are two Federation ships like fighting each other?" And he's like, "It's just
none of your business."
He's like, "Well,"
none of
and he's like, "Well, there's got to be something
valuable
because that ship, like we've scanned it, and there's like nothing to it. Like there's got to be something valuable on it. So we're gonna take it. We're gonna take it. You're gonna let us take it, or we're gonna blow you up and take it anyway."
And he's like, "Dude, that's got all my best officers on it.
Oh,
you got my A team down there."
And so they essentially use the same trick on the Ferengis. They
make them think a warbird,
right? Another Federation starship is approaching. Like a Federation ship approaches, it's a starship, like an Enterprise.
And they're like, "Ooh."
And they're like, "Get the hell out of here!" So they dip out, and it turns out that there's nothing.
Yeah, it was Riker.
It was Riker's idea. Like Riker, and there's a scene where Data's asked to like calculate like what or like try to like figure out like what strategy Riker might use.
Right.
And he says like, well, he only uses conventional strategies like 30% of the time. So right. we should
prepare for anything.
Prepare for the unexpected. But then again, he might anticipate that.
And he gets into like a loop.
Yeah, he might anticipate that, and so we should prepare
for the conventional.
Conventional.
But then he'll expect us to expect the
unexpected.
Picard's like, "Data!"
Like you're overanalyzing.
Data! It's like Dave with Alvin.
At the end, Data challenges Kilrami to another Sergima match.
And somebody says to him, "Smash him good, Data."
And Kilrami like quits after a while. He's like, I'm done with this.
Because Data's like it basically has him at a stalemate. He can't beat him, but he also can't like.
Well, he's playing. He's not playing to win. He's just playing. He's just like stymieing Kilrami at every turn. So he can't win either. And he's like, theoretically, I could have done this forever.
Right. And and everybody sort of crowds in. Like he's like,
it's like the end of Teen Wolf.
And Data, like I think Pulaski comes up to him. And he's like, "I smashed him good," and everybody's like, "Fuck yeah, bro!" And that's where the episode ends. Yeah, they're bro grabbing on him. Like they lift him on their shoulders and carry him around the Enterprise. And credits. That brings us to
the season 2 finale. It's a clip episode called Shades of Grey, which
apparently it was because of a writer's strike, not the money.
Yeah, issue. I thought it was...
But that's weird to me. I guess we need to research it a little bit more because, I mean, if there's a writer's strike, how did they generate that 15 minutes or whatever, 20 minutes of new content that make up half the episode? Like, did they have an unfinished script that they sort of worked around or made them improvise? Like, say this.
Maybe.
Like, they're sort of whispering off camera, like, you're improvising this.
Shh. Well, it's, Riker gets,
cold open.
Gets... Like a plant gets thorns
on him.
Yeah, and he like passes out, and there's this virus this deadly virus in his body. He's close to death.
Right.
And so they have to.
Troy cries a lot.
Troy cries so much. So Pulaski has this machine that has like 6 or 8 different needles going into
like
his brain.
Yeah, a total recall machine.
And so they have to essentially they figure out that painful memories kill the virus.
Yeah, the happy memories cause it to flourish like yeast in bread.
Yeah, and so we get a bunch of clips of from the first 2 seasons.
Right, we see Data meeting Riker for the first time, which it's so weird watching that clip from the pilot now how flat the delivery is compared to how, because they hadn't found the characters yet. Data especially, Brent Spiner's talking very fast and in a very flat voice. He hasn't quite found that more thoughtful Data tone yet. And that awful Pinocchio. It's a joke.
Interesting.
That's right. That's what
I do like that they include the flirting scene with him and Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
Shut up, kid.
Shut up, kid. Tell me more about my eyes.
I don't think this is going to help me, you guys.
I mean, according to Wikipedia, it says it's widely regarded as the worst episode of the series, with critics calling it god-awful. I don't think it's and a travesty. I don't think it's god-awful. I mean, it's a clip show.
It's fine.
Yeah,
I'd be bummed if I was watching Trek in syndication and that one came on.
I'd be like, I probably wouldn't watch it.
Yeah, I'd skip it. But I didn't. I've seen worse. I've seen episodes I hated more than this. Code of Honor. Yeah. Anybody?
Come on, that's god-awful and a travesty. Yeah. Come on.
The first Ferengi episode. Where they're basically monkeys.
So,
but yeah, so basically, Riker has to relive all the saddest things that have happened to him in the last 2 years.
Yeah, so it starts off with I mean, when Pulaski figures it out, it's when he's remembering Tasha dying,
right?
And she's like, "Oh, it's the bad stuff," and they kill the virus, and he recovers, he lives.
Yeah, he has a great arc in the episode, in as much as he never shows despair. He's joking and laughing the whole time. So even though the show's a bummer because it's not really a new episode so much as a repurposing of old material, they still manage to get in some good character. I do that all the time. Sergio just put a stuffed donut on his head,
a stuffed donut pillow
on his head,
like a crown.
Crown.
Apparently, Sean does that all the time.
All the time. I do it at least once a day. But anyway,
so that's season 2.
It was sort of a quiet finish to the season, especially after Q Who. I feel they almost should have saved Q Who for the finale.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. That would have been dope.
Yeah, but overall, a step up from season 1. 2 really great episodes and a whole bunch of pretty good ones. Only a couple that I just didn't like.
Stinkles.
Yeah, fewer stinkers than season 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
The characters are continuing to grow. Riker, especially, I think, took a big step up this season in terms of likability. Got a beard, and no more creepy boner smiles.
That's the best part. Yeah. Next week we start season 3, Evolution, the Ensigns of Command, the Survivors, and Who Watches the Watchers.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Watchmen.
No, it's Watchers.
I was I watched Watchmen.
I watched that.
I didn't like it very much. I love the book.
So we'll talk about those 4 episodes.
Right.
We'll also
do Book Club into
Dorkness at the Mountains of Madness. Hopefully we'll have a name for the fans of this podcast that we can address you as. A loving
moniker.
Moniker.
A handle.
Maybe even some slash fiction.
Maybe. We're going to have to work out the logistics of that. Maybe off the air.
Maybe I'll write part.
Page 1.
And then you'll take it over. I don't know. But thank you so much for listening. Facebook.com/Into Dorkness.
Join the conversation.
Join the convo. Please tell your friends. Tell your loved ones.
Ask their opinion on whether I was outsmarted, grifted, or hustled.
So far,
it's 3-2.
It's 3-2
that I was outsmarted.
Yeah, I think so.
A lot of victim shaming going on. You guys should be ashamed of yourselves.
Sean texted me and said there's a lot of victim shaming going on concerning Dan the Shoeshine Man. And then my response was, you were asking for it.
You should have dressed that way. You should have been there.
In that situation, etc., etc., etc.
All of it true. That was your second text. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks so much.
LLAP.
KO.
This has been Into Dorkness.
When he pulls his dick out in the mirror.
Well, does he pull it out and then put it back in?
I think he pulls it out and puts it back in.
Okay.